Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show. With your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Yes, we are.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino.
One day I'm just going to start it. I'm going to go, and good day to you, sir.
I said good day.
I say good day.
That's right. You just did.
We got to do some. We got to do a live performance one time. Like have a whole bunch of bands, and we can come out and do our whole MC thing. This is my whole thought process with this, like the live podcast.
For sure.
And then then I can do my good day to you, sir.
I said good day.
I say good day. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
If anybody's still listening right now. The Twitter's doing great. The Instagram, Facebook, we're getting blown up all over the place. This is awesome. People are donating money. They're buying stuff through our Amazon banner.
That's right.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Christmas is coming. You can still get your orders in. It's close.
It's very close.
And you mentioned to me.
I did I?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess 2 shows ago.
Okay.
Mr. Kulik.
Yeah.
Has celebrated.
Oh, yes. Happy birthday, Mr. Kulik.
I'm sorry.
His birthday is,
There's no cue board here.
Sometimes all parts of the brain are together at once. This may not be one of those times.
Well, they were parked.
Okay, they were parked. That's right. Yeah, they were idling. Yes, happy birthday, Mr. Kulik. December 12th is his birthday. So happy birthday and thanks again for being a guest.
I want to apologize. Absolutely, thanks for being a guest. What a great guy he was.
Yeah.
I want to apologize. I have kind of slipped on my duties here with the website. I have not put the videos up of the guy making the comparison to the audio sounds with acoustic guitar. I'm sorry, hollow bodies and solid bodies and all that. I promise I'm going to get
Slacker.
it up. It'll be up.
It'll
probably be up before
things
this.
To do.
Well, it's called a job and stuff. But and it probably will already be up. So I'm just kind of saying this in past tense. Mm-hmm. So it's okay. It's no problem there.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm. If it's not up by the time you hear this,
write me a bad letter.
It might actually be, but if it's not,
if it's not up and you're listening to this,
really have recourse.
Yeah, exactly. So send any comments saying, "Hey, stupid, it's not up," and then I'll make sure it gets up. Also, send us any comments, and if you can, go to iTunes and score us. We're getting some more of that, and it's awesome, man. Anything that ranks us really good, even bad, I don't care. It's just. We need those comments because...
I hope you don't rank us bad, though.
No, not at all. It'll make us rise to
if you do tell us why.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the explanation. If you're going to... You can't just call somebody out without telling them why.
Oh, believe me, they'll tell me why.
That's right. Fear not the comments, my friend.
They've
all been excellent. So thank you all.
Yes,
thank you very, very much.
It is life.
It is,
as we know.
This is true. This is true, and it continues. It continues, and it's mostly all good.
Yes,
so I'm very thankful every day for it.
Yes, it's all good.
It's carrying on. It's carrying on.
Wandering into a field here.
Speaking of carrying on, we are going to carry on. With
my new best friend, because he's such a hot rod guy.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And you found that out on our last wonderful episodes of the Amps and Axes podcast. But
my new podcast will be Horns and Wheels.
Horns and Wheels. I'm digging it.
I don't know what the hell to say, but
I like it. I like it.
Carburetors and mufflers or something. Because,
I like horns and wheels.
And then I can call Ritchie up all the time, and we can have all these cool conversations about cars that cost way too much money in today's market.
But they're fun to look at.
Oh, they're awesome.
Fun to look at. So, we enjoyed his company on the last episode, and now we're going to bring him back to talk about kind of what lured him back into the MI industry, and what a creative concept he became involved in.
Yeah, you guys are going to like this.
Yeah, this is very, very cool. So without further ado, once again, we bring you Mr. Ritchie Fliegler.
Hi, this is Mitch Colby from Colby and Park Amplifiers. I'm here with Jim Weeder, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
So, as promised, last episode, we were going to continue on with the continuing story of Mr. Ritchie Fliegler and what lured him back into the MI industry. So, we're gonna start off there and find out what Ritchie is up to now. So, Ritchie, welcome back one more time.
Yeah, it's great to be here, guys. It's a sad tale of friendship and cool products. I think you guys can relate.
It sounds so sad.
So, like both of you guys, you spend enough time in MI and enough bands and whatnot, and you make a lot of friends. Or you don't, but.
That would be me.
hopefully, mostly friends and almost no enemies.
That's what we're shooting for, anyway.
That's a good life, right?
And one of those, great friends I've made along the way is Larry Fishman of the famous Fishman Company. A very creative guy, as long as it didn't come to naming his own company. I guess the same as Leo Fender and Jim Marshall and those guys. But the deal was this. It's like, Larry and I would speak every now and then and, just, hey, what's going on? Talk about our kids, talk about life or whatever. And we hadn't really worked together in a while. But so he calls me up about a year and a half ago and it's like, hey, hey, Fleegs, it's Fish, and I go, okay, there you go. And, he says,
what up? Still floating?
Yeah,
around?
Exactly. Hey, bada bing. Where's my?
I'll add that in later. There you go.
Perfect.
Too many pens in there to make it ring, but it's good enough. There must be something. Anyway, he says, it's been a while since we worked together. I have a project I'd really like you to be a part of. And I'm going, oh, this is awesome. Getting back with my friend, making some cool stuff. And I said, so, hey, what is it? Is it the next big, digital imaging for acoustic guitars, or maybe a tube acoustic guitar amp, or something really cool? And he says, no, it's pickups for electric guitars.
And I thought you said exciting.
Exactly, and I just kind of went silent, and you said, geez, really? Wow, that just sounds fantastic. And I got my wits about me, and I said, we haven't worked together in 3-4 years. I speak to you every now and then, and it's, hey, we should do this, we should do that, but I don't hear from you for 6 months, and now you call me and say you want me to work with you on pickups for electric guitars, and this isn't over the air, and you got to believe. I said, Larry, fuck you, and he goes, yeah, that's kind of what I expected. That's why I'm calling, and.
Because you wanted to hear that from me?
Exactly. So, anyway, long story short, he says to me, look, I'll fly out over the weekend, and because I've got this really cool thing I'm working on, and I think it's amazing, and I need to know what you think. And if you come out and you think it's junk, just tell me and charge me your day rate and go home, But if not, we got to work something out. So I said, look, man, whatever, So I go out, and we head out to Andover, and it's always a good time with him. I mean, he's just, it's good fun, and the guy knows how to order wine and food, And
if nothing else, it's a good excuse to go out there and hang with a friend.
Yeah, especially for, and you guys, you're coastal people, and I'm a recovering coastal person, and so you're up in Massachusetts. At the very least, you're going to get a lobster out of it. You know what I mean? So,
right.
So I go in, and he shows me these things, these pickups that were eventually to become Fluence. And I said, "Oh, what is it?" And he says, "Well, there's no coils, what they are." And he shows me these things, right, that we eventually started calling the Fluence core. And what it is, it's a stack. You can imagine circuit boards, right? And everybody can imagine a circuit board. Now imagine a circuit board with a trace, instead of being like a 16th or a 32nd of an inch, is actually, a thousandth of an inch, like, as thin as your hair, right? And imagine those traces are concentric, right? But not really concentric. They're a screw, right? It's like a record. How many grooves are in a record, right? And, there's one, right? Well, there's two, one on each side, right? And
technicality.
Except on the third side of the second Johnny Winter album, right? Where there are none.
None.
But that notwithstanding, so what it is it's like a groove of windings, but it's really just printed circuit turns, right? And then they're stacked up like 46 times. Right, so it's like round and round and round, up, round and round and round, up, round and round and round, up, and then they're laid on top of each other, so you get something that approximates a coil for a guitar pickup. And I looked at him and I said, I mean, it's one of those things you hold in your hand, you go like, oh my God, this is like amazing, right? You can just, if you're one that can see these kind of things, you see it, right? You look at it and you go, right. Oh, okay, I got it, right? And
this really is something new and different.
Yeah, it's like, and so why does that matter, right? So you have these coils, and the idea is that every coil is exactly like the coil before it. They're identical. And something that I didn't really appreciate and understand until I got involved in this project, I mean, we'll start at the beginning, right? So you've got like a beauty rate coil, right, form, and then you're winding wire on it, right? And the wire's all over the place. It's never in the same place. And if you want to like buck hum, you need both coils ideally would occupy the same space in the universe. They can't do that. But if they're at least the same, it would be a good thing, right? And also, you're winding, an oblong. So, no matter how slow or whatever, you're going to have lumps and clumping, and you have different amounts of insulation on the wire. So it's very difficult to get any two coils to be identical.
Yeah, there's no perfect repeatability.
Right. And so, right. And I understood it the way you're understanding it right now, because we've been there. What I didn't understand was how unrepeatable it was. And so he said, look, here's a major manufacturer's coils, and we've got this deal here, and I'll get into what that is, and I'll show you. And we just started looking at him, and the difference between like 5 different pickups from people that I regard, I mean we all regard, right? Was astounding, right? And so then he also made up this guitar with like shuttles in it, right? And so we took these pickups and these coils, put them in, and said, okay, here's 5 pickups. Here's 1, bang. Here's 2, here's bang. Right? Same guitar, not more than 10 seconds between pickup changes, right? Mm-hmm. And as you know, sound is our. It may be one of our more enjoyable senses, but it's our weakest in terms of memory, right? Right. People think they can remember what something sounds like, but 10 seconds after you hear something, 15 seconds after you hear something, you have no idea what it sounded like. I mean, you just don't. And send the letters to the guys, but you just don't, right? Anyway,
no, I know for sure, because if I'm auditioning 2 different transformers, I got to have a system where I can flick a switch
and go back
listen,
and forth,
because even the time it takes me to quickly solder and unsolder
you've lost
a few wires.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what I just heard before I resoldered those. Now, so yeah, for sure.
Now I got to interrupt, Ritchie. I one thing that maybe we want to explain. Yeah. I've seen pickups being made that very rarely are they made by hand. It's usually a CNC machine that actually runs that wire back and forth. So that is very precise.
It is.
When they do it in a major manufacturer like that. So even that, is not good.
Well, I'm not.
You know,
I'm not going there because I think what we've created is an alternative. I'm not going to sit here and say that that your PAS and your 59 Les Paul are now junk. I'm not saying that. I'm not even. If anybody, I don't want anybody to even think that I'm existing in that universe, right?
No. What I mean is that it's not as precise.
It's not as precise, and the extent to which it's not precise blew my mind, right?
Wow.
And
yeah, because I guess once it starts stacking,
and then you think about it. I mean, what's the tolerance for the thickness of the insulation? I mean, start thinking about that. You got 4,000 or 5,000 turns of something, and if the insulation has a thickness deviation of 50%, of the thickness of half a thickness of a piece of paper, that's a lot of space.
Sure, when you compound it 4,000 times.
You know what I mean? So it was really one of these things where it's like, wow, that was crazy, right? So there was that. And then he says, let's go down this road. Now let's take, your favorite old pickups and he's speaking to me specifically, not, your favorite old pickups in your old Les Paul. And imagine, it's like, you've seen what happens, like the tuning keys, right? How they've shrunk over that same amount of time. Well, that's the plastic on those bobbins, that's why all these old pickups, are so microphonic and they're so problematic. And he says, and we started getting to this whole kind of discussion about what vintage was 30, 40 years ago, or vintage is now. And, we talked about that earlier. You know what I mean? About what's the difference between vintage, used, and just so old as to be, difficult to manage, right?
Right.
So
a lot of old everything is that way.
Yeah, like me. I'm old and very difficult to manage.
Did your wife tell you that, really?
If she only told me once, it would have been okay, But that notwithstanding, so you have these fluence cores, and they're these, solid windings, and that are, because of that, the way they can be affixed. They're affixed to the mounting plate in a way that's solid. I mean, the whole thing is like so rock solid on its own that the whole, the problems with microphony and and repeatability and all that became just like ridiculous, right? Mm-hmm. The one thing that was kind of staring us in the face so I'm listening to these things, right? And I play you play 3 notes on something and if it's good or bad, right? The rest of the time, like someone says, "Hey man, check out my amp," right? And you play 2 notes and you decide. Then you spend 15 minutes just wasting time to figure out a way to say sounds like shit. It's like we've all been there, right? So
I did everything I could.
Yeah, I did. Exactly. It's like, what am I going to say? How am I going to say this? What am I going to? It's like, the color is nice. So you get into this thing. I'm listening to it. I say, wow, these are really interesting, but they're kind of the sound was kind of boring, right? And that kind of was one of the byproducts of the precision, right? So Larry said, "What do you think about making them active?" And I said, well, I would think that would be like the worst thing you could ever possibly do. Because guitar player, we hate active stuff. He goes, well, what do you hate about active stuff? I said, well, like in a Strat, you got to take off the pick guard, or you got to, do something with the springs and all this, blah, blah. And again, you got to cut a hole. I mean, it's like, it's a pain in the neck, and I got to keep buying batteries. And he said, and he shows me this thing that, and it's prototype. It's all kludged together. He says, look, give me your cell phone charger. I said, okay, it's like, it's here. This is the battery. And I said, oh God. So he says, we can run these things active. I can get about 250 hours of playing time, which is, for those of you who don't know, so 250 hours means that on Monday morning, you plug the guitar in, and then you forget to unplug it, and you go on vacation for a week. You come back and you say, oh, damn, I have a gig tomorrow, right? You play the gig and you still have 4 days left of playing time. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's plenty of
that's a great reference.
Yeah, so that's between charges, right? So think charges up with a lithium-ion battery, right? And what that allowed to happen was that And when we were creating this, it was like kind of a combination of science and art, which obviously is the only way to do this stuff. Listening to stuff we loved and guitars we loved, and we started creating all the frequency points, where they dipped, where they were high, where they were low, and we got it really darn close, looking for resonant frequencies and all that, and we were able to, AP that stuff and figure out where it was, right? But and this was so cool. We're still going, it's kind of like the frequency response is there, but it just, I'm not,
Is it feel at this point or something?
Yeah, it's feel, and we kind of started calling it this, especially in the Strat stuff. We're going like, I'm not feeling, I want to feel some chaos. Right now I'm feeling like I can anticipate everything that's going to happen. And when I'm playing, especially a Fender pickup, it's like every note is like an adventure, and like where your pick is, where it's the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're looking at him, and we're going like, and he's got an engineer that works for him. He's an acoustic engineer. His name is Ching Yu, right? And he's listening to this, and we're just kind of like bemoaning it. It's just one of those things. We say, okay, fine. And we're just complaining, and we're getting it really close, and we're really loving it. We decided we're going to go active because he's got this great implementation of active, and we're not really just. But I knew it was close, and and God knows I've heard worse, but it wasn't like, it was really darn good, but not just like, oh my God, right? So
the magic.
Yeah, it wasn't magic, So I went home, and I obviously at that point I said, Larry, you definitely have something here. I get it. But we got to deal with this thing, right? And so I'm on board, or whatever. And this was over the summer, like a year and a half ago, right? And Larry goes on his vacation. It's August, right? And he comes back, and he calls me. He says, "You won't believe this." I said, "What?" He says, "Well, while I was gone, Ching Yu was, listening to this conversation, and he said, he says, I was thinking that what you guys were concerned about was the way the string interrupted the magnetic fields and the shape of the magnetic fields in 3 dimensions over time." And of course I went like,
wow.
Whatever, yeah.
So physics enters into it at this point.
Exactly.
Right?
And so I said, well, what are you talking about, right? So I'm here in Arizona, right? And Larry says, I'm going to email you some pictures. And he emails me these things, and I'll send them to you when we're done. They're pretty amazing. They're these 3-dimensional plots of the space around a coil and how the coil presents itself to the strings and the universe, right? And the dips and the valleys, and we started calling, so there's, we had the electronic part down, but now we're talking about like the motor part of the pickup, and what part does that play? And obviously everybody knows, it's like, Alnico this versus ceramic that, but the extent to which the shape, in other words, there's a lot of single coil pickups that will use a blade to try and get, a sound, right? Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that I don't care. I mean, I've seen it. You can't get there because the part of the pickup that sees the space around it, the shape of that space is very unique to the original pickups and what we love about them. So the shape around, a beautiful old PAF, the shape around a great Telecaster pickup, the shape, the kind of the magnetic halo around it, and the way, like, if you're bending a string and it's like, a 1/16 of an inch, north of where it would normally rest, how that changes the frequency response of the coil. And it was like one of these things where we're looking at it going like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? So at that point we knew something that sounds obvious in reverse, but it's clearly not obvious because a lot of people aren't doing it, right? Is that you say, you know what? The motor has to be the motor. You just can't fake this part of it.
Can't do away with it.
Exactly. You can't fake it. Yeah. This is not EQ. This is not electronics. This is just physics. This is time and space and
proximity and all that.
Exactly. And and so we built a set. We took apart some Strat pickups and some old, some Les Paul pickups, and just built a set as one does at this stage, with some tape and some 5-minute epoxy and all that kind of stuff, and we put them in a guitar, and it was like an epiphany. It was like, oh my God, this is like amazing, right? Well, at that point, we're in the room, and Larry he says, you realize that we have this motor structure, and we have this sound shaping aspect of it, and we're shaping one sound. There's nothing stopping us from shaping two sounds. And we go like, what do you mean? He says, well, if you look at the motor of for example, you look at a motor of an old Strat pickup and a Texas Special, the motor is the same. What's different is the inductance issues and all the other stuff that's going around it, and where the resonant frequencies are. He says, we can play with that. And we said, oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, what do you mean? He says, well, we could have two voices. Every pickup could have two voices. It could have your perfect vintage voice, and then you can just flick a switch, and it would be the overwound or whatever else you want it to be. But the thing is when you overwind these pickups, it's not done by overwinding them, so you don't lose all the things that you give up. In other words, it's like we all love the sound of a vintage Strat, but we would like it to be louder, right? Or have more output.
Right.
So when you give it more output, you increase the inductance, you lose the high end, you get your output, but you lose all that crystalline beauty, right? It's like, and
everything's changes a compromise.
Right, exactly. Well, we don't have that problem. If we want to boost the output we have a perfect Strat pickup, and we love the way it sounds, but we just wish it had a little more kick. We just give it a little more kick. And if in doing so, we would like to, make it sound a little more like one of those pickups. So, you bring up the mid-range, you roll off the highs end a little bit. But in doing that, you haven't increased the inductance. So when you turn your volume down on your hot, I'm making air quotes here, on your hot pickup, you don't instantly lose all the high end, so you can turn down the guitar volume on what sounds like an overwound pickup and still have all the high end that is in that pickup. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Because the interaction between the pickup and the volume control or the tone control, where on a normal pickup, those two things interact with each other and give you the changes that you're experiencing, good or bad. You don't have that here.
Exactly. So if you can imagine the sound and the mechanics are there, but the inductance, the nasty inductance issues that you have are all done away with. So everything tracks. It's 100% repeatable. You've got two voices on each pickup, and your volume control does nothing other than make your pickup louder or softer. So if you're, do what I call, old man channel switching, which is, you turn your amp on 10, and your lead channel, the guitar is on 10, your rhythm channel, the guitar is on 2, and in the middle is your crunch channel, right? It works perfectly, and you don't need to do anything with, you don't have to use any kind of, buffer amps. You don't have to use any kind of, like treble bleed nonsense or any other silliness that, that, again, it's you're always making a deal, it's like, well, I can put a treble bleed, but now the taper on my pot isn't right, and it's not really, it's keeping the high end, but it's really just dropping the bottom off. You know what I mean? It's like you live with it because that's what you lived with. That's what it is. You know what I mean? It's like
right, and you learn to work with it. And it's it's one of those imperfections that you have to learn to work with, or compromises that you have to learn to
work with. So we got rid of those. And again, no one in this group, anybody that was working on these, when the idea wasn't to sit there and say, we're going to come up with a great new guitar sound. I mean, it's like, no, there's no new sounds here, so to speak. What there are the sounds that we love without the baggage, without the stuff that we just kind of said, well, hey, there it is, please don't turn that dimmer down while I'm playing this song on my Strat because, because
right.
You don't have to worry about that stuff, And
now, I have a question. Okay, from the battery side.
Yes.
Okay, I know that battery has a shelf life.
Right.
Now, it could be 10 years, but if, with guitars, they don't really get thrown out.
No.
So is that replaceable inside the pickup?
The battery is, okay. The pickups will run on a 9-volt battery if you wish. So the battery is an outboard piece, right? And you can get it 3 different ways. You can get it installed in a tremolo cover on a Strat, right? So imagine how thin it is, right? Right. So it would fit inside of an iPhone, right? So we have one form factor where it's on the back plate of your Strat, and there's a little USB port above where the strings go through. There's another form factor where it's on the back plate of a Les Paul.
And there's a little USB thing.
Yeah, and then there's another form factor where you just get kind of the 2 pieces and a template where you drill a 1/2-inch hole and you can just put the pieces on the back plate. I just installed a set on my son's ESP, which has its own world-shaped backplate. Right? And you just kind of there's double stick on the battery, which I stuck to the side of the control cavity, and I stuck drilled the little hole, and I put the control module, the charging module, as it were, and the USB output, so that, when you look at the back of the guitar, it's just presented right there.
That's cool. I was under a different impression. I thought the batteries were in the pickup.
No.
Integral part of the pickup itself.
They're outboard.
Okay, so they're outboard, so that's perfect.
Yeah. And if you're replacing a set of EMGs or something else, and you already have a battery compartment, you don't want it to go through it, you can just use a 9-volt battery.
That's pretty cool. Now, how long do you get out of a 9-volt?
That's a great question. I have no idea. I don't know what the amp hours are. It's easy enough to find out, but I actually don't know the answer to that question.
It's got to be really low.
Yeah.
I mean, for the lithium battery to have that long of a life, it's got to be really low current draw, and it's the solid state part of it, the quote unquote active part of it, probably all little surface mount circuit board.
And it's all, and to your point, Jeff, it's all analog, so it's not drawing a lot of current.
Oh, nice.
That is nice.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, that's probably
cool.
a couple of surface mount FETs and
exactly.
Yeah. It's tuning stuff. Yeah.
Now, how do you flip it? You say it has 2 modes, right?
Yeah, you can switch it with in the kit, in the box. You get everything you need to install them, right? And the tone pots have push pulls. And if you don't want to do that, again, on my son's set, he doesn't. He's got one volume control and he doesn't really want to push pull. I just put a mini toggle switch. You switch them internally by just grounding out a wire, so you can ground it out any number of ways. You know what I mean? You can leave it hanging and touch it against your tremolo bar if you want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, so is it a 2-wire or 4-wire for the humbuckers? How are they?
It doesn't really work that way. You can get in there and play with it, but it's there's just connectors, right? So you have, I mean, I think what you're asking is, can you do like series and parallel and all that kind of stuff? And the answer is not really. But there are hacks. I mean, like everything, there are hacks. If you want to apply yourself, you can get in there and do that. But again, the point is that. Let's think it through, right? Because this is kind of what we did. It's like, what's the purpose of having a coil split in a humbucker? And the answer is that you can so that you can clean it up and make it sound like a single coil. Well, we do that by flicking the switch and turning the volume down.
Well, there you go.
You know what I mean? And so you get there, and
you can get there. It's just a different way of getting there. It's taking a different route.
Right. And you don't get any hum when you do it.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Even better. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot that's tweakable just in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a different. Like the pickup is a different approach to a pickup. Changing it is a different approach to changing it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
And some people say, well, I really want a good single coil sound, a split coil. Well, or can I do a coil tap? Well, you don't have to do a coil tap. You can just, right now you're coil tapping because when you turn your volume down to 6, you lose all your top end. Well, here you don't need to tap the coil. You just turn the volume down on the guitar.
But Ritchie, can you put the hum back in?
Yes, here.
We have the new hum pedal coming out next week.
That's right.
As a matter of fact, we have an export model with 50 cycle hum built into it.
You can pick your hertz, whatever you want.
Exactly. We got 50, we got 60, whatever it takes, guys.
That's right.
You want fluorescent lights or incandescent? Exactly. What do you want here?
We got transformers, we got dimmers, we got everything.
That's right. So, modeling is a fantastic thing. You can make any noise you want.
Oh yeah.
But again, there's no modeling here, so
cool.
It's kind of fun, you know.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So
I'm happy that it's all analog too. That's very cool.
Here's a huge question. You may know this, you may not know. I mean, this is so far off of the beaten path of how pickups have been made since like day one. What? I mean, how did he come up with this? How did what scientist walked in?
Yeah. So there's a guy. His name is Thomas, and he's from upstate New York. And you tell me what industry he's in. Take a guess.
He went to MIT.
Yeah. Go and.
Like all technology, it comes out of military or aerospace.
So it's an aerospace guy who's a rocket scientist, right? Because that's the law, you know.
Exactly.
And of course he plays in a band because that's what those kind of people. That's what they do, right?
Yeah. And he saw a help wanted sign.
Exactly. And so this is a technology that's used in his part of the world, and he's looking at it because that's the kind of guy he is, and. Mm-hmm. And he's going like, maybe this could work, right? So he made up a prototype that was, pretty kludgy and sounded awful, but you could hear it in there. You know what I mean? It's like listening to a demo of a band that you know is great, but they recorded it on a cassette. And you're going like, you guys got something. You know what I mean? Yeah. Right. So it was kind of that, and he brought it to all the pickup companies. That when I say all the pickup companies, you're thinking of all of the ones he's brought it to, right?
Yeah.
And they're baked into a way of doing things, and and they're making great stuff, and they're all friends of ours, and they're still friends of ours, and but they passed. Every one of them passed on it, just saying, I don't see it. It's not my thing, And they finally, as a last ditch, they got it in front of Larry. And his thing was, he says, "Oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Something that's the exact reason that everybody else passed on it was the only reason, the main reason he was interested in it, because it was just a different way of approaching it." And
that's cool.
He signed a deal with the guy, and that's the story.
Yeah, I love outside the box like that. And honestly. You've probably seen this something similar too. I know I have, because my mind keeps going to this. I think it used to be called like a cell phone antenna extender or something that you put on the back of it. It's like this clear tape with just this. They actually use the same thing in some of the. I forgot what the hell you call it, things that they put inside of boxes and things like that.
Oh, it's the alarm system.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's the same form of technology, actually.
Absolutely,
it's just a surface mount piece of wire.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, I mean, as a coil is a coil is a coil, and
exactly.
And they do what they do when they're put to work for different things. A guitar pickup is just half a transformer operating backwards, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now, is it a heavy magnetic pull, or is it very light?
It's very light.
Like Fender Lace pickups, they had it was like the field was so light that it didn't do anything to the string, which is very cool.
Yeah, the strings are very free. The magnetic pull is very, very light. We did some Gauss tests again on some of our favorite stuff for sound, and also for the point you're getting at, which is how much does it allow the string to just vibrate freely, right? Mm-hmm. And so we wound up in a very light. And the Gauss is actually, there's a spec for that, and I don't remember what it is, but it's based on some 50-year-old just really nice weak magnet pickups that sounded great.
That's cool.
Nice. I had a question going back a little bit. You were mentioning that it sounded like you added, once you figured out what aspects you were missing, it went into you added magnets were they different magnets, or did you actually have magnet? You have to have some sort of magnet before that,
No,
right?
no. Okay, when we were first starting out, we were just kind of
a little clarification. That's all.
Yeah, no. When we first started out, the magnet was more a discussion of material. Okay. So we were saying, for a strap pickup, we should use, this Alnico or that Alnico or, ceramic. We were speaking in terms of that. We were speaking in terms of material, not form. Okay.
Okay.
So the easiest thing to do, in when you're making a magnet is to take one magnet and put it sideways and you have a bar, right? Which is why so many companies use them, right? And certainly on all inexpensive pickups, they always use a bar. Sometimes it's the bar that's in the coil, or sometimes it's a bar that's underneath the coil, right?
Underneath, right.
And we're talking Fender pickups, obviously now, or single coil pickups, and we were playing with it that way, because that's what if you think about it, that's what most people are doing who aren't Fender or people who are copying specific Fender pickups, right? And the reason is because of cost. And we're listening to it, and again, it was just we could get it so close, but it just wasn't. It almost it sounded better than it felt, right? The playing experience wasn't. I don't know. It just wasn't there, and it just drove us to have this conversation that Ching Yu picked up on, and that's where it went down on that.
It sounds like it wasn't doing what was expected of it, and what was expected was kind of like the unexpected.
That's right.
Because you don't know where it's going to go, and that's the cool thing, and that's what you fight with, but that's what you love.
That's right. Yeah. And we call it, we would say, it sounds great, but it doesn't have the chaos. I want the chaos. I want to, like use the side of my pick and have it go, you know what I mean? Do all that stuff instead of just kind of just like do it and be unpredictable, and it wasn't doing it. And then when we really got deep into this motor aspect of it, it was like, oh my God, this is crazy,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was on the website. They got it in chrome for humbuckers.
Yeah.
They got it in chrome, gold, and black.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
You have a modern humbucker look, which is sort of like it's just flat.
Yeah.
There's no screws or anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then they have the classic look, which has the 6-pole pieces for a humbucker. And then the Strat pickups, they got the pole pieces sticking up just like a staggered Strat. I mean, just like how they're done. And the price isn't that bad. I mean, Sweetwater, I can say this, right?
Yeah,
it's
sure.
It's like $229 for a set of humbuckers.
Yeah, and that comes with, everything, right? It comes with pots. Wire.
And you're getting two sounds.
Yeah,
so you're getting two sets of pickups. Really, truthfully. All the wiring, all the stuff.
Well, with the pair of humbuckers, you're getting 4 sounds.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I meant. 2 per.
Yeah, right.
And for $229, that is that's.
That's all electronics too.
Yeah.
That's you're rebuilding the entire electronics. So
exactly.
You're not leaving any weak links in there.
And you need a ground on this, right?
Well, you should. I mean, even
Okay.
I don't know. There's a company that says they don't need a ground.
We talked about it.
That may be true, but if you ground them, they're a lot quieter.
I understand.
No ground necessary, but maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, good idea if you did.
Again, physics are a bitch. You know what I mean? It's like they're just like you just like give in, man. What's the big deal? Just ground them for God's sakes.
Really, is it going to kill you? Right.
Not anymore. There was a time, but now it's not going.
That's true.
Remember the old Fender amps with the 2 prongs?
Of course.
Yeah, and you had that little switch on the back.
Polarity switch.
Got a little story real quick. I was playing with a bass player. He had a Fender Bassman. He was using that as his bass amp, right? And I had, I don't even know what the hell I had. I think I had a PV Musician. Remember those colossal tanks?
Sure.
And I was grounded. He wasn't. He had a studded strap on.
Excellent.
And I went to touch him on the back, like, slap him 5, like, hey, way to go. At about a ½ inch, I saw it arc off of one of the pyramids on that strap and hit my hand, and both of us literally just stopped, and we're like, it went through my heart. And it I guess it did the same thing on him.
Don't you know how to test to see if the switch is in the right place?
I
take the guitar and you hold it up against the mic.
Yeah, well that was okay. I could sing through the damn mic. It was when I touched my bass
you could.
player.
I guarantee you, he couldn't.
Or just take your hands off of it and find the sound, the side that's the more quiet. Or bring it to Jeff and have it fixed.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
I'm gonna put one of these 3 conductor cables on. You'll love me later.
Yeah, so you'll definitely want to put a ground on your pickups.
So here's the funny thing, right? With all that, so you think Fenders are deadly? Because really, you got to remember that was code. Those things. Was. Your TV set was like that and everything. But this is great. So I don't know if you guys buy anything from Antique Electronics Supply or CE.
Absolutely. CE.
Yeah. And they're right here. They're like, half an hour away from me. So I go down there. I know those guys. And, I can, if I need something, right? And I'm down there. And this guy is like buying some stuff, he's buying some tubes, right? And he's asking for some real oddball stuff, like a 65 L6 and a 25, a 25X7 and that kind of stuff, And I look at him. I said, "Oh, what do you got? Like a Sears, amp in a case, guitar amp?" He goes, "Yeah. How'd you know?" I said, "Well, you're either fixing an old All American 5 radio, or you've got what we can would call the death amp." And
the death amp,
and it was that wasn't the only one. I mean, a lot of the Dan Electros and all this stuff, as and
yeah.
So, instead of having a power transformer, what they did was they strung a resistive line on all the heaters that added up to 112, and that's what they did, right? So it was, 65 L6, right. Or it was like a 117X sub, which was like a rectifier. They had all this crazy stuff. But because they did that, the chassis was live.
Oh, well, there you go.
So on your Fender amp, the chassis wasn't live. It was just kind of heavily attenuated, right? Here, the chassis is live, and it presupposes that you have knobs on the amp, because if you don't, the knobs are the only thing insulating you from...
Holy crap.
From the chassis.
Jeff, am I right?
Oh, no, yeah. It was...
It's like a toaster.
That was a way you could get away with not having a mains transformer or a power transformer, because you take the AC, you run all the filaments in series, and that adds up to 115 volts or whatever, and you put the 115 volts right across them, and then you take the 115 volts and you put it directly into the tube rectifier, and it comes out with DC voltage, and all of this without the luxury, quote unquote, of a transformer isolating the wall plug from anything that you're touching.
Exactly.
Oh my Lord!
So
yeah,
that is insane.
Every electronic every radio made between like 1930 and like 1965
is like
that, and every most inexpensive like your Philco black and white TV was like that. Your
Jesus,
and a lot of those inexpensive amps. The most famous being hey, I got this Silvertone case thing. Really? Don't even bring it to my house.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you're getting full amperage and everything.
It's like taking the plug to your lamp and biting on it.
Holy crap!
Right.
It's like that scene in Christmas Vacation when the cat ate the wire underneath the chair.
That's exactly it.
He had 9 lives, Clark. He done spent them all.
Exactly. The only difference was that was in the movies.
Right. Oh, is it too funny? So now we not only don't have that, but you don't even need to go there with these things.
Yes, exactly.
No.
Yeah. So so these pickups are grounded.
Right. Yeah. But that's awesome. But that's, what a great string of discovery in this story.
That is amazing. Literally, they reinvented the pickup.
Yeah.
They reinvented the electric guitar pickup.
Yeah. The way we kind of put it, and and it's a little markety, but hey, I can't help myself sometimes, is that if you think about it, in the mid-30s when George Beecham got a patent for an electric guitar pickup, every guitar pickup if patents were in perpetuity, everybody making guitar pickups would be paying him a royalty today, except for these.
That is so cool.
Wow. Yeah, that's really how you have to look at it. It is so outside the box. It's in a different box in a different room. You know, it's so outside the traditional thinking of the way these things work. Even active ones, it's completely different from your traditional active pick.
Now, is it okay if we run the videos of Greg playing?
It's okay. We encourage it.
We'll have them up on the front page.
Cool.
With the show, and it'll follow the show. So when it goes into the archives, it'll be there forever.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm telling you, when you hear this, you'll think, whatever, you know. But I'm telling you, I was expecting something completely different. He's playing that Strat, and it just comes over you. You know, it's like this, and you're like, wow, there's that perfect sound. That everybody wants, and then he gives to the Les Paul, and I'm like, well, there we go again. Yeah. Well, it's really kind of crazy to hear.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff being invented. The one thing we made sure not to invent was like a new sound, you know, because the sound is that would be suicide. You know, it's crazy. You know.
Yeah. And at first, I thought it was Greg, you know, because he's just an amazing guitar player. This is great, Greg Koch, by the way.
Yeah.
And but then you know listen to it and you go, oh, they got it. Whatever they did right. You know.
Thank you.
No, that's you know, and the great thing is, like, the technology was there, but it took somebody like Ritchie to put an ear to it.
A team of which I was a part.
Okay, well, but you know, you were the predominant ears, and because you were a player, you knew
what to hear.
And or to feel, you know, and what the experience was and what the experience wasn't, it's more important.
And you're being very kind. There were other people. I mean, Greg was in the room, Frank was in the room, and a lot of Fishman guys. But yes, there was a team. It took a village.
Well, see, there you go. It's another reason I like him. He's modest
and a nerd from MIT.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm going to send you those pictures. You're gonna flip when you see them.
I would love to see those. Yeah, I really
that'd be
would.
Kind of cool.
I really would. Well, that's awesome, man. And once again, I thanked you the first time for taking your time, and now I have to thank you again for taking twice the time with us. And you've been so generous with the time and explaining the whole story behind this unique product that we have to
now. Maybe, I don't know how we'll do it, but we're not far from Connecticut. It's not like we got to go, you know,
take a truck up to Fishman.
Yeah,
listen,
I mean, that would be really cool.
Absolutely. Well, let's think it through. All right, are you guys going to be at NAMM?
Are we going to do that?
I don't know. Winter, possibly summer. Okay, but I don't know. I don't know this winter. I don't think we'll.
Okay, so we won't see you there. So right now it's you know, it's right before NAMM, and we're like insane. But why don't you know just after NAMM, just come on up to Andover, and you know they'll roll out the red carpet and show you around.
Cool.
That would be the coolest thing ever.
That would.
Yeah, because there's a lot more there than that. I mean, you know, it's like there's the amplifiers. There's obviously a whole world. You know, 30 years of acoustic pickups and you know products for all that. I mean, it's an amazing thing, and you know a lot of it is made there. Certainly, it's all designed there. There's like 40 people or so that work there, and what I love about it is that you know Ching Yu is from China, and you know there's a lot of Hispanic people working in assembly, and there's a couple of Russian guys. It's like a Benetton commercial in that place. You know?
United Nations.
Well, I got to tell you, if you ever see one of those Fishman acoustic amplifiers, don't dismiss it because it's got 4 tiny speakers in it. First off, it'll rip your head off. It's the loudest thing I've ever heard, and it's absolutely dead quiet. And whatever goes in, obviously, is coming out because it sounds like your acoustic guitar got like a set of balls that nobody I mean, I knew a guy that had one, and he had the 200-watt model or something.
Some crazy stuff. Mine is only like 180 watts or something.
It was insane. I could not. I was. He was like, check out the new guitar. I'm like, screw your guitar. What in the hell is that?
Yeah.
And I was blown away by that. That is a very impressive. It's like a PA system, basically.
It's exactly what it is, you know, and it's, the whole testing procedure, I mean, again, it's all ears. They have a number of people that work there, as you can imagine, that perform. And, it's one thing for it to do one thing, but it's got a mic input. And so they got some people that sing. And if it doesn't sound good with vocals, it's never going to sound good with guitar, And that's the way they go through it. They get it really close with the science, and then they drive each other crazy, by singing and playing and arguing about it. And that's how you do it,
That was the first time I was impressed, and then I had a guitar that had a Fishman blend on it, right? And then I was like, wow, that's even more crazier. Because it's like a microphone and a bridge pickup.
Right.
Yeah, so it combines those two.
The thing that I use, have you ever tried I know, it's like we should be on like Home Shopping Network now. It's like, have you ever tried their Aura system? Do you know what that is?
No, I've heard of it. I've not had the occasion to try one.
It's unbelievable. It's like, I mean, imagine what it took me to spend $400 on a box for my acoustic guitar. It's like,
wow.
It was. Think about this, right? So it's not modeling, it's imaging. And what they mean by that is that, again, so you have your guitar and there's space around it, right? So, and as the player, you never really get to hear your guitar, right? It's only, someone has to play it for you, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So in many ways, we have no idea what our acoustic guitars sound like. But
unless you own a $6,000 McPherson.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
That's the only one.
Yeah. So that notwithstanding, the space, you have a guitar, you're playing it, right? And then there's this space around it, and that's where you put your microphone, right? And if you have an undersaddle pickup, you're getting a really lovely sound. And if you're having a blender like you're talking about, you're getting a lovely sound from the undersaddle, and you're also getting a very interesting sound from inside the guitar. But that's not really a sound that anybody hears. That's just a nice sound, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a nice sound, any more than any recorded sound is the same as the reality, of it. But so what they do is they 3D model the space. So they'll take, let's say, like a U-47, right, and put it a foot in front of your acoustic guitar, an acoustic guitar, right, and record it, and then they do. And again, that's just way over my head, some kind of spectral analysis of the difference between what's like under the saddle and what the microphone is hearing because of the time delay of the space between it and the air and the coupling and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And they model that space. Wow. And they model it for specific guitars. So my main acoustic guitar is a J45. So on mine, I can download from what they call their Aura library, 10 different microphones, the effect that they have on the recorded sound of that guitar. A Sheps, a 47, an 87, a 57, a 421, an SM7, all the stuff, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Mm-hmm. The Neumann something or other, some pencil mics and stuff. And what you do is you kind of mix it, you have your piezo sound and you have this other sound, this Aura sound, and it's like a blend control on it. And it's startling. It's really like one of those things you go, are you kidding me?
Wow.
That's crazy.
It sounds like you're listening to something in a room with a mic on it, and there's no mics.
That's awesome. I'm sitting here just imagining this in my head, and I'm just silent because of it. But that is
wild stuff.
That is that's you get to hear it from a whole different dimension that you don't get to hear your own guitar from almost ever.
Yeah, ever.
Yeah.
And so certain they obviously have a very close relationship with Martin. So you can buy Martin. I'm terrible with model names and this stuff, but there's a group of Martin guitars where the actual guitar is I hesitate to use the word modeled, right? It's
modeled,
yeah, but it's not because it's not. It's Orid, you know what I mean? Where it's like you're buying that D28. The model is of a Martin D28. That's that guitar, and it's kind of built into it. So it's like it becomes this like insane, just kind of like you listen to it, you go, wow, I mean, the joke is it's like you only louder, everybody, it's only, this is that, it's like, it's pretty wild. It's
such an innovative company, man.
Yeah, what are they doing up there?
Well, there's those long, cold winters, man, it's like.
Well, when we're
you got to do something. It might as well be think.
Yeah.
When we're not listening on cell phone conversations, we're making these cool pickups.
Exactly. Hopped up on crustaceans,
There's a new one.
Wow.
That is wow. Well, hey, thanks for continuing in the tradition of fishmen, for us. That's very, very cool, man. That
is a crazy thing.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I want to get a set of these. I really want to hear.
You got to go up. Yeah, really. I mean, I could, and you're going to say, yeah, just do that. I could send you a set. I really just. I would wait and go up there and just see the whole thing and just like, bring your guitar with you, put a set in while you're there, get the whole show.
Experience.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
That's very cool.
That's what I knowing what I know, that's what I would recommend guys like you do.
See, I have a wedding coming up in May in Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a hop, skip, and a jump.
Sounds like road trip.
Yeah, call it business.
That's right.
I wrote the whole thing off. Come on.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome stuff.
Thanks for the addendum, Ritchie. That was awesome, man. I really appreciate that. And
yeah, man.
I don't know what more to say. I've thanked you for your time, and I'm really sincere about that.
Yeah, I wish he lived closer. We'd be able to talk hot rods and guitars
all day.
Go drinking.
Absolutely. Good bottle of wine. So get there in a hot rod, have a good bottle of wine, and play some guitar, man.
And then drive.
It doesn't get any better.
A wall on the way home.
DUI.
No, we just have to get a hotel room for that one.
There you go.
Separate rooms, please.
Right. Yeah. Oh, of course. All right. Well, once again, thank you. Have a great rest of the evening.
Yeah, man.
You and you're obviously you're a Beatle fan with the J45.
Of course.
So,
it's like there are two acoustic guitars, and one was used by one group of people, and the other was used by all the bands that I liked, and I bought a J45.
There you
we
go.
play both types of music, country and Western.
Exactly. That's right. All right,
Bye,
Ritchie.
guys.
Have a great one, and maybe one of these days we'll hook up. If you happen to be at Summer NAMM, hopefully we're going to have the opportunity to do that. So let us know, man. We'll hook up.
It.
All right, Ritchie. Thanks, man. Have a great one.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
And there you have the story.
That is crazy.
The story of Mr. Ritchie Fliegler. Yeah, hell of a nice guy, man. And wow, just been involved in so many cool things over the years.
That is I always say this, but that is a head down guy. He is just. I mean, he just constantly, and he always says that he was the luckiest guy. There's more to that. It ain't just luck. It's you got to have a personality. You got to show up,
and and
sober,
and right. Listen up, kids. But and you got to have a creative brain behind all that. Which is what he has. He looks at a situation and goes, this. Here, this is what we need to do, or this is where we need to be, or he recognizes the market. He recognizes where someone needs to be in the market, and that's what he did with Marshall. That's what he did with Fender. I'm sure he's a fantastic addition to
Barrett Jackson.
Well, not only that, but I mean, they're
you mean
the marketing firm? No, the marketing firm that they have now too.
Yes,
I mean, he's been in his whole career looking at markets.
Yes,
and who better to handle like product launch and things like that than somebody that's been looking at the market for so long and knows where to target things and how to target things and what works and what doesn't. And that's. He's in yet another great business where his luck, quote unquote, is paying off, and it's not just luck, man. It's that he's got the brain for it. Yeah.
Telling those stories, that stuff, man. You don't hear that. That doesn't make press.
Oh no, and there's so much of that coming from the guests that we have. There's it's like it's another history lesson.
Yeah, man, that's
the history that you don't really get to hear anymore.
And then
else.
he worked for Mitch.
So fortunate. Yeah, he worked for Mitch. Yeah, and, we're just so fortunate that these people open up to us and tell us all this cool stuff that goes on. It's amazing. I'm really thankful. So thank you, Ritchie.
I'm thankful.
Well, there you go.
I mean, come on, man.
I know.
What the hell? I would have never heard this story.
No, not at all.
And that's awesome.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Oh, Rich and I have spoken over the years, but never that in depth. And I'm glad we have this vehicle to.
It's just the coolest thing ever.
So yeah, it's great. So,
great.
But that said, we got to wrap this thing.
So until next time, my friend, I am Mick Marcelino.
Damn straight you are.
You?
I'm still Jeff Bober.
And we are saying
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @Amps and Axes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.